Andy, thanks for taking some time to talk to us. So we'll talk about both teams. Let's start with Arsenal here and the news that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is no longer the captain, playing for the first time without him as captain. What do you make of that news, and how do you think Arsenal is going to react today?
Well, I'll answer the latter part of that first, Ahmed. I mean, the way they're reacting is Alexandre Lacazette is going to be the skipper this evening. How do I think the team will react? I think they'll just get on with it. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't a massive surprise to me. The number one prerequisite for any club skipper is to set standards, lead by example, and that doesn't mean just out on the grass, that means around the club, 7 days a week. So you can't have captains not being on time, not keeping time, not being in meetings when they should be, not being here and there where they should be. They have to be around the club setting an example. So I think the club have made the right move. I didn't personally get Aubameyang as a captain anyway. That's a role that I fulfilled at most of my clubs, and I just didn't see Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang ever as a leader in that respect. I see him as a great goal scorer, as a great finisher, but a bit of a lone wolf in that respect. You know, I think a skipper has got to be someone that drags everybody together. So I didn't quite see the appointment anyway, and it's no surprise that they've decided now to take another direction.
And it's a crucial time for them, too. They can move into the top four with a win today over West Ham, currently in that Champions League position. This is 2 years in a row they've been fighting for the top four. What do you make of West Ham, and what's been so good about their recent run here?
Well, I think certainly West Ham, just as we speak, have just found it a little bit difficult, Ahmed, over the last few weeks. They've not been at their free-flowing best. The results haven't been coming quite so well. Look, they're still a very, very dangerous team. I really like what David Moyes has done with them. I think they've got some exceptional players, some outstanding talents, but it's not been at their absolute best recently. You know, it's not been the West Ham that I saw at the start of the season, whereas some of their football I thought was outstanding and very, very good to watch, backed up with wins and results, which is important. It's all well and good having performances, but you've got to get your wins. But they've not been at their absolute best just of late. No better place than come the other side of London and to try and get a result here this evening. They've got the capability of doing that, but they'll have to play very well, I think, in order to win here tonight.
All right, thank you, Andy. On the call with Jim Proudfoot. We'll check in with them in about an hour from now. So we've reached basically the midway point of the season, almost there, and Arsenal West Ham right there at the top. Take a look at the top of the table here. The winner of this game ending the day in the top four, along with Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, the title contenders for this season. Wolves also in action today. You see them there currently in 10th. As for every other team scheduled to play today, they can be found at the bottom of the table. Wolves' opponent, Brighton, currently in 12th. As you can see, that postponed match between Burnley and Watford would have been huge for both clubs. A win for Burnley would have moved them out of the bottom three and put Watford in the drop zone. So that's what's coming up today. And now I welcome in my friends, Tim Howard and Danny Higginbotham. I am Ahmed Fareed. So let's talk about our game in Arsenal. We heard Andy talking about the news. Danny, you talked about it a little bit yesterday with Robbie Mustoe. But Tim, for the first time, I mean, you played with Mikel Arteta, so you kind of know his thought process here. Do you think he's got this right? Do you think ultimately this was the best move and the move that needed to be made for Arsenal Football Club?
Well, ultimately, yes, he got it right. He got there in the end. I thought it was, I agree with a lot of what Andy said there. It was a long time coming. A captain is meant to set standards. I don't think Aubameyang has done that. Mikel Arteta might have given him, and rightly so, maybe your captain gets a little bit more cushion, should I say. And so there's been a few transgressions, and he had to drop him for the North London Derby last season. So that was one mark. But this was a massive call for Mikel Arteta in his young managerial career. It's huge. I mean, Arsenal Football Club is one of the biggest in Europe, and the captain stands out amongst the rest. And so I think stripping him of the captaincy was right. He got there in the end. Look, the fact of the matter is this. Captain set standards. The hierarchy of a football club is the manager, the captain, the senior players, and nobody else's opinion after that matters. Everyone looks to the captain, and he wasn't setting the right standard. If he chucked off and he got on a flight when he wasn't supposed to, two things should have happened. He should have asked the manager, and the manager says, yeah, go ahead, go on, if that's the case. I've been on clubs that happens. Or you just say, you know what, maybe it's not the right decision, and I need to stay. He took option C, which wasn't an option at all. And so when I look at this, I think he finally got there in the end. I didn't love Aubameyang as a captain. Because, listen, for me, on any team I play, I want my strikers to be hungry and greedy and ornery and say, give me the ball and go score the goals. I don't want them defending back in our end. I don't want them trying to give team talks and jeer the team up. It's hard enough scoring. The hardest thing to do in football is score a goal. Stay up there and score the goals.
Yeah, having said that, now Alexander Lacazette, at least for today, on an interim basis, takes that C. What do you make of that, and what could be the long-term solution for Arsenal moving forward?
It's the problem. You know, you talk about the leadership group, and you have Xhaka, who's already been stripped of the captaincy. You've got Lacazette, who's on a free next summer. You've got Holding, who's not really playing, and then you've got a group of young players. Now, I've always been of the mind of becoming a captain doesn't matter what age you are to a certain extent. I think it's difficult to make players become leaders. I think you're born leaders and it goes forward from there. So therefore I would have no qualms whatsoever of someone like a Gabriel or even a Ramsdale being the captain of the club. From a manager's side of things, I don't know whether Tim looks at it the same way, but any manager that I've had, the player on the pitch that's been their captain is a reflection of the manager. And Arteta, Tim, you know better than me. What was Arteta like as a captain? I'm guessing it's completely different than what Aubameyang is. Well,
that's right. He led by example. He was always the calming voice of the dressing room. Sure, he was fiery at certain times, but he was the guy that everybody looked to when the captain speaks. He's the guy you follow the dressing room, onto the pitch. You listen to every word. And I think sometimes, which is what happened with Aubameyang. Sometimes managers, and I've been on clubs that this happens, they give the captaincy to a player that they are hoping to get the best out of. They're not giving it to him because they're the best leader. They're hoping to get the best out of it. And that always ends in a disaster. And this is another case of that.
Will we see Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang play again for Arsenal?
I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised. I think they're getting to the point where it's like, you know, the time's up now. Problem is, huge contract, still got over 2 years left on it, so it becomes a problem. The biggest thing for me when you look at Arteta with Aubameyang now, trust. Does he trust him on the pitch? Does he trust him, obviously, off the pitch? It's been shown that he doesn't at the moment, so there's a long way back for Aubameyang, and I would probably say that we won't see him again.
It's on him, right? It's on him. He'll be asked to probably train with the reserves or show a good face in training. If he gets his head down and trains and scores goals, we know he can do it. So he's an asset to the club. It's on him whether he plays again or not.
One thing we know for sure, we will not see him today.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.